Hello, coaches, and welcome to this second presentation looking at the theme Attacking Transition. My name's Dave Newbury, I'm the e-learning coordinator, and I'm joined by my colleague Ian Barker. Hello, Ian.
Hello, David. Pleasure to be here.
Ian, we have Nate Williams with us today. Nate is the ECNL Director for the Carolina Rapids and also a member of your national staff for United Soccer Coaches. Welcome, Nate.
Thanks very much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Nate, we've now progressed from a small-sided activity now into building from the back in half a field. Would you like to talk us through the setup for the first sequence?
Absolutely. So the structure right now is that we've got 4 players building out versus 0 just as we start to establish the shape. So the spacing is going to become really important, that the players can visualize exactly where to be in relation to each other. So the players will actually start this side of the cones, but facing this direction as they are protecting, obviously, the goalkeeper. So the 4 players will be facing away from goal in a defensive shape. Then once the ball is played, the players will start opening up to create an attacking shape, which will resemble the transition.
Nate, a nice simple start. Let's talk about some of the methods you might use.
Okay, so some of the key parts to this is many times when we're working with players, we're always starting in an attacking shape and building into an attacking shape. So from this exercise, that we're in a pretty tight defensive unit here as we're protecting the ball. But once the ball then gets played by the coach into the goalkeeper, that's the moment of transition into attack. So the right back will open up into this position. The right central back would open up into that area. The left-sided central back would open up into there. And the left back would open up into those areas to create the bigger space in the transition.
Ian, we use this methodology quite a lot when we're trying to establish patterns. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this because the cones initially help us give the players a reference point, perhaps, of where we'd like to see them disperse. And I think the word I'm thinking about here is disperse, because the idea is they're spreading out in possession. But rather than having them stand there and then having our goalkeeper distribute, we're saying to them, let's try to get to those places as if it was in the real game. So the ball has been, let's say the ball has been knocked all the way down to your goalkeeper and you're facing the wrong way, you're recovering and getting open. And I really like that. I think that creates a much higher degree of realism for the players. And then when we layer in the pressure of opponents, it'll be much more game realistic.
Thank you, Ian. And so now we move into sequence 2, and now we've started to add a little bit of pressure from adding in the defender, Nate.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a different spin on the use of target players as well for this exercise. So once the 2 central backs start to open up and finding the way out, so they'll find a more direct pass. Now, this could resemble us playing into the right back or potentially playing into the left back. Once that happens now, we're trying to simulate a little bit of a turnover as well to make sure that we keep the players honest. Now they can start getting compact defensively, and the blue team will now start to attack. If the red team win the ball back again, then they'll be playing into the open targets just to simulate a little bit of a different way of getting out and breaking the line of pressure.
Very interesting. And let's now talk about some of the methods that you'd associate with adding a new defender in there and removing a couple of the red defensive players.
So in this exercise here, as Ian had mentioned, the use of the cones to making the space visible for the players to be able to see is really just a starting point for the players to create the space to be able to play. From there, they move into more realistic space to be able to get the ball off of each other. The progression to this would be adding in the 6 that could come in and link, and obviously then the numbers start to becoming 3v3 with a goalkeeper, or potentially, if you're adding in the outside backs into the wide areas, you could be getting as high as 5v3, 6v3 plus the goalkeeper to give the players the opportunity to be successful in breaking through those first lines.
Ian, one of the observations I made on this particular sequence is how Nate has chosen to get fullbacks up high, and then the central defenders moving out wide. So really an attacking focused build up. What other things do you see here?
Yeah, I think that's right. These types of wide positions, if we're going to really be sincere about playing out the back, even at the 9 and 10 level where we have the restraining line in US Soccer's 77 model, makes a ton of sense. It's interesting because these are indeed the targets for the red players, but then they become opponents as they counter. So what I like about that is this might be a little challenging for a novice coach, but once the players get the hang of it, it kind of makes sense. And there's an opportunity here, I think, for a ton of frequency because the coach resets every time. Let's say with the ball played through the goalkeeper, and you could get these little 2v3, 3v2 scenarios played out a number of times and get some really healthy repetition.
And Nate, before we do transition to the next slide, if you have obviously more players at practice, where would you line them up, and then how would you transition them in?
So I would place the players in around this area so they're seeing all of the things that need to be seen as the lines are being broken. Then once we would rotate out these 2 players, 3 new targets or 3 new players here, and then just rotate the players in. These are literally probably 60 to 90 second sequences, so that the rotations are very, very quick. It enables the players to gain some success pretty quickly in breaking this first line across here as we play into potentially what is the outside back.
And of course, if we had another goalkeeper, we could have the goalkeeper waiting on deck and transition every 60 to 90 seconds with the other players as well. Let's now go on to our third sequence, and then this one, Nate, you've now added 3 defenders or 3 blue players that are going to now defend against the build-up, against the Reds, 4 red players on field, and a goalkeeper.
Yeah, so again, just progressing through the session, just applying the numbers in a realistic manner. The player that we're still missing in this right now is the 6, that probably would be operating in these areas here, which will enable now the central back to open up into the space and the outside back to again make that bigger. So the objective really is, as you're seeing, we're breaking the first line here as the outside back gets in, and then breaking potentially the second line as we play a ball up through the gate to end the game. The other option is to potentially just using the coach as a target as well to reset it into the coach's feet if needed.
And Nate, let's now talk about the methodology associated with this third sequence.
So you'll see based on the picture that the ball is starting with the right-sided central back. Now, ultimately, if the pressure that we see the pressure here from the 3 blues, this may not always be the best option for them. So something to consider here is the left-sided central back opening up, the left back opening up, and the ball potentially going in through the keeper into those spaces to be able to finally release out the opposite side. So really, it's as much about changing the points of attack as it is playing through the lines, but ultimately keeping, maintaining good quality shape to give yourself the best chance of playing through the lines or changing the points.
Ian, it seems that establishing patterns of play in build-up is crucial when we're playing against unopposed scenarios like pattern play, but now adding players, often with young players, they'll start to lose a little bit of their knowledge and understanding of that pattern. How do we start to reset that when we've started to now add in defenders?
Well, hopefully things have progressed. So if we refer to the previous parts of the session, we were in a 4v nobody initially, so the players did get that chance to operate. But very quickly, we have to layer in the concepts of pressure. This is quite aggressive. I mean, we've got 3 guys in blue able to press, and then we've got immediately people jumping in to try to hit the Reds in transition as well. So this is quite a high pressure situation, but the patterns will emerge now. They won't be the perfect patterns necessarily you've taught, but they will be realistic to how the opponents react as you play the ball around. The other thing I might consider in this one, if you find that your back 4 get a little bit flat and kind of play laterally and forget to play forward, you might consider putting maybe a number 6 player in here and just giving them a little bit of length. So you could potentially add another red player, which might give a little bit greater game realism to it as well.
Well, thank you, Nate, and thank you, Ian, for your time today. And thank you, coaches, for joining us on this second presentation looking at attacking transition. And please join us for the next session of Give and Go Live.